Come, hold my hand. Let's go on an adventure. This episode is sponsored by The Lost Executive, the executive traveler's source for all things business, travel, and hospitality related, offering curated content for the modern day business person. They bring the world to you, featuring exclusive interviews with business leaders, on-site reviews, industry showcases, and topical interest pieces. The Lost Executive are the leaders in human written journalism. The free digital magazine, The Logbook, is available for reading at www.thelostexecutive.com. Packed with hotel and boutique accommodations, reviews, detailed business articles, and hilarious travel stories from their team of writers, you'll be motivated, educated, inspired, and entertained. So visit thelostexecutive.com today
MOMadic
and
Adventures.
keep getting lost.
I'm your host, Effie McMorris. This podcast is to help people get out there and travel, learn a little bit more about how they can do that with their family, how it doesn't have to stop there. I am really excited about my guest today. His name is Donnie Rust, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but I've done a little cyber stalking, and you're so professional. Your values and the things that you're preaching and in The Lost Executive, which again, I'm going to let you jump in and share your own spiel. But I think what you're doing is really admirable and like really excited to have you here. So just thank you for being here. Thank you for chatting who you are. And if you can tell us.
I'm the founder and also the creative director of The Lost Executive. It is we publish the magazine, The Logbook, which is a digital business publication that focuses on travel, and we also provide travel reviews and on-site reviews on an executive, focusing really on like business travelers and people who travel for work. This stems from years of me traveling for meetings and businesses and work, and it's just been a big part of my life, and I was very pleased to be able to build up the company, especially from
where did it start?
I just left a very successful publishing house, and actually I hadn't just the magazine started. I was on a flight to Malta to go get a certificate in the finance industry, insurance and securities. I was on a flight to Malta, I had $15 in my pocket, and I decided to launch a magazine to kind of pay for. And it kind of worked, you know. A lot of I'm fortunate because I've been writing. I also have a bit of an audience from endeavors that I've done in the past, a few projects that have gone well, and some of them that haven't. So I did have a bit of an audience to work with, and I just kind of built it up from there. Blagged my way mostly for the first few, and faked it enough that until it actually started to be quite real and quite an entity on its own.
That's genuinely how I feel every day. I think I'm constantly winging it, as you've noticed. I feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I'm a parent. I'm a traveler after the executive world and being a professional to now sort of being in the creative while simultaneously having to play admin and schedule producer and marketing agent and all of that. I sometimes feel a little overwhelmed. And so it's really nice to know that you came from sort of a similar place and to see what you've accomplished. And like you said, some have failed, but you're kicking ass. So congrats.
I like to think so. I mean, the website and the magazine, certainly because it's travel and hospitality focused, did take a massive hit during the COVID period and whatnot, which was annoying because we just kind of gathered up space. But yeah, we've actually relaunched the magazine. There's a rebranding. It's doing very well. I have introductions because I never kind of know which kind of what to focus on. We've got the magazine, then I've got the family, I've got all these other things, and it's like I don't know where to kind of focus it for your show.
Hey, it's all organic, however you feel comfortable, whatever you want to share. And I'll make you sound as cool as possible in edit. Don't worry.
How you finding the podcast? How's it going on your side?
It's surprising thing. I started it because I left my career to become a parent and invested a decent amount in becoming a parent. Like we've spoken about, I had a lot of desire and brain power that I wanted to use, and I didn't know how to continue to keep my mind active. And so ASL entered the chat, and I really wanted to put all of my efforts into being a great parent. But I felt sort of alone because I didn't have a house. I wasn't settling down. You know, my husband and I were and are still always sort of flying by the seat of our pants. And a lot of other people in our our situation are in a house, comfortable, situated. And so I thought, I think this is worth sharing. I think people deserve to know that everyone's kind of just trying to figure it out, doing the best they can, and like maybe put some kindness in the air and hope that it'll encourage other people to get out and explore with their kids. And now we have, oh my goodness, I think we hit like 2,000 listeners or something in the last few days. I mean, it's been so cool. It's been so
Mm.
cool and I started with no experience. I have had
Oh,
no idea how to edit, had no idea how to get a podcast into the world. And I think in similar style of your wife, I'm a very like, give me a book, give me a video, I'll figure it out. And my husband will make a nice cup of tea. Um, and same with the car, like we travel with our car and then we stay
yeah.
in different like Airbnbs, hotels, different
Mm.
hospitality situations. And so we don't have like a big RV or a big van. And we had to learn very quickly how to like change the oil, how to fix a light bulb or a flat.
Yeah.
And uh, I think a lot of those things are just like the nitty gritty of traveling, and they're the hard parts, but they're also the parts where you like learn the most. And so
Mm.
that was my goal with the podcast, was to just like be as authentic and true as possible and get as many parents and travelers excited about exploring. And same with the logbook. I mean, I was reading an article today about things to do in New York City for the Christmas holiday.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I was like, I've lived outside New York City my whole life. And there were things on that list that I was like, oh my God, I never even thought about that.
Yeah, so we work with a number of freelance writers. We work firstly, all of the staff that we work with, they're almost exclusively digital nomads themselves. So they all work remote and they're all spread across the world. That was very useful because when we first started the magazine at the time, I was a digital nomad. So I was doing very much the same thing as you. I was hopping from Airbnb to Airbnb across Europe with basically all of my belongings in a couple of bags I could carry on my back. So I'd have like a rucksack, I'd have a suit bag because I had occasional meetings, I had a laptop bag, and I had like a smaller satchel. I'd just kind of walk in to airports and train stations with this massive, and a ridiculous cowboy hat, which I wore under the very misguided idea that it made me look cool. Um,
We're going to edit that into all your photos too. We're just going to put it, but I'm also, for anybody who doesn't know, Donnie is like 6.5 feet tall. He's massive. So to then on top of that have bags and a cowboy hat, you
yeah.
must have looked so big.
People did kind of like stop. No one ever asked if I needed any help. That's one thing. Oh, I also traveled with a guitar, so I had a guitar case as well. So there are a few pictures of me on Instagram when I'm just walking around, and I've loaded myself up like a donkey in Africa. I've just got everything on top of myself like this here.
That's me
Um,
every time I walk in from the car, from a
yeah,
grocery store thing. I won't do 2 trips.
nah, but yeah,
It's
pretty much. But that was everything I owned when I left because I used to live in Norfolk down in England. Had a beautiful pad. It was like a refurbished nightclub in the middle of the city center. It was a massive place. At
okay.
a great price as well, at a very great price. So I was like, when I left there, I was like, why am I doing this? I got a great place, great price, loads of friends, but there'd been a couple of changes on my side, and I was just like, I just wanted to go, so I just up and I left. And yeah, it was. There were a few times where I'd kind of like be traveling and jumping from plane to train to taxi to bus, and there were a couple of times when I was like, I got on the train after like getting out of the taxi. I'm like, oh, brilliant! I was like, where's my laptop bag? Where's my guitar? And having to like run back through the station. And so I never missed anything, but there were a couple of
Wow.
very, very close calls. So I just think I'm pretty lucky as well as considering that I did all that traveling without any kind of travel insurance or anything like that.
That is
Um,
very lucky. And
no, I think it's very stupid, but I was lucky.
eh, well, now as an adult, looking back, you get to say, oh, that young kid just making mistakes and figuring it out.
Oh, I
But
was in
that's
my
us now.
30s, but
You're still a
I
kid.
was in my 30s. Yeah, I'm still a kid. My
We're
wife would
still
definitely
kids
agree with
now.
that. Yeah, yeah. No, I have to agree with that. Yeah, there was that. Yeah, traveling is amazing. I think it's very important that people travel. I've never met anyone who's traveled who hasn't. If you've traveled well and had the opportunities to have some misadventures as well as adventures, I think you become a far more rounded person, and you're able to handle the things better because you've been out there and you've been traveling. You're out of your If you travel somewhere for any length of time, you get further and further out of your comfort zone, especially if you're in a place that they don't speak your language and you have to accommodate other cultures and you have to acclimatize yourself to a place. Because I'd always stay a month in each city I was in. Give me
Same,
enough
same.
Yeah, it gives me enough time to meet people, kind of get used to the local culture, embarrass myself at the gym a
Yep.
couple of times. Yeah, get lost on the transits, those sorts of things. I thought it was very important.
I always say the day that I can get my family to the new place that we're living
Hmm.
without directions, without getting lost, then it's time to move. It's the comfort of home or whatever that I
Yeah.
think creates a level of like stagnancy that you forget that comfort isn't the best learning tool. Being
No,
uncomfortable,
no,
like
absolutely not.
the things that I can do now because of how we travel. So, the way that we stay, we usually have a 3-day buffer. We pay significantly less than other people would pay to stay in these like luxury apartments, essentially. And then, but if someone wants to pay full price, we get kicked out. And so we have 3 days to pack up and move and pick a new
Hmm.
place and get, and like when I tell you the things I can plan in 48 hours, I put my blinders up. I'm like a horse and I can schedule naps, packing, like a Rubik's cube, get everything in there. Every minute is accounted for. Like everything is absolutely down and it still won't go perfect. And then to be able to adapt and have that sense of like agile response to whatever is happening, whatever chaos is going on. It's something that I think, unfortunately, I don't think like the business world even teaches you. Like that is,
No.
as a traveler, the way you need to figure out how you're gonna put a roof over your head the next night sometimes is so true and so
Absolutely.
real. And you fight harder for that than you do for other things, I think. And so this lifestyle is not for everybody. It's not super easy. It's not fun and games, but it's so fucking worth it. My daughter has fed a giraffe. She has
Mhm.
gone to like playoff baseball games. She has been in like 14 or 15 different states already. Like, I'm just so grateful that we've been able to explore like this. And so
Mm.
I want to know what, and I'm going to say this right, Coddywampling. Did I
Yeah,
say it right?
Scotty
Yeah,
Wampler.
I did. What has Coddywampling been like with your family and your family to be? Like,
Yeah, so
what's that going to look like?
yeah, I do think that there's a massive difference between the traveling that I did when we started the logbook, because that was just myself traveling. And when
Solo
I was
traveling is so
solo
different.
traveling, it is different. And with that, I learned, I had a colleague that I initially started the business with who we did a lot of business trips together prior to that. And he actually taught me a lot because he was the kind of guy, he would be at home once a week. Other than that, he was always traveling for work. And he was the one who kind of told me that the important thing is to have at least for business traveling, is the bare essentials that you have. You're absolutely essential. So you need your wallet, you need your phone, and you need your passport. If you have those things, you can get communication, you can explain who you are, you can identify yourself, and you can move around. Outside of that, everything else is just like almost luxuries when you're traveling. So I'd always make sure that I got my cell phone, my wallet, my passport all safely in like inside pockets of my trousers. And I'd be carrying other stuff like, but if I lost everything, it would have been very annoying and very
Hmm.
difficult, but it wouldn't have been the end of the world. All my business stuff that I have set up is all saved online. It's all digitally and securely saved. So even if I lost my computers or any of my digital equipment, as long as I've got my phone or even a phone, I can keep things going. I think the digital age has really made traveling more accessible for a lot of people. It has made the adventure perhaps a little bit more safe and easier to predict. To a
Yes.
little
And
bit,
I
to a
think,
little bit.
I also think, unfortunately, the other day I was trying to buy a map. Like
Hmm.
I wanted to be able to fold and put pins and, do whatever. And it's actually difficult to find one of those.
Yeah.
They're like $10. You have to like buy it. And now, off the internet. And it's because everyone can just go like this on their phone and zoom in and zoom out and do everything they need. And I am such an advocate for the internet, social media, all of it. I think it is a tool that we can use to make the world so fucking dope, and it expands our minds. It allows us to travel and all of that. But when it becomes a hindrance or it stands in our way from exploring, I find so often, we're walking down a street and I see 1,000 people just looking at their phone. And it's like, you are in the center of New York City, surrounded by some amazing things that you're never going to see again, maybe. But
I was just going to say the Lost Executive was named that because I have an incredible ability to get lost. Because I've always had a great admiration for the first explorers that took to the ocean in those boats and aimed towards the horizon that, as far as they were aware, led nowhere. Because when you get to the horizon, you look behind you and you can't see anything but water. There's only one way forward. You just got to keep on going, and you generally don't know where you're going. And nowadays, thanks to the internet, it's actually very easy to know exactly where you are at all times, which I think there is a certain amount of loss in that. I don't think it's a bad thing. There's definitely a lot of advantages to being traceable if you're traveling alone, but
especially as a female, I
yeah,
have
exactly.
my location is always shared with a number of people. So just God forbid anything happens.
That's certainly.
Someone can find my phone.
Yeah, exactly. But at least I mean, I can only speak about my traveling. I used to just love getting lost, but I am a 6 foot, 6'5.5". We recently measured myself some 6'5.5", South African. So I would be generally walking around and just enjoying myself and just not really caring. I didn't really get into much trouble. There was one time where I was briefly working. I was briefly during COVID. I was helping out at a call center just to kind of get myself out of the house. And it was during the December, so it was the end of the first year, and it was dark by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was just pitch black. And I was to get to the office and then to get like the bus station, you had to walk through a park, which didn't have lights on at the time because everything had stopped working. Not stopped working, but obviously maintenance crews hadn't come out to kind of sort out the lights. So it was completely dark. So I was like, I'm not going to let my female co-workers walk across this by themselves. So I was just kind of walking along with them and whatnot. And then like the very next day, they're like, listen, just be careful. There's a 6'5" guy walking around in a raincoat. I'm like, I haven't seen him. I've been looking out for him. I will make sure that keep an eye out for him. So I was standing there looking around like, where's this guy's been creeping people out? And it took me embarrassingly long before I realized that I should probably just change the raincoat to something a bit brighter.
Yeah. And maybe not be 6'5" and just standing around with your binoculars looking at people.
Yeah, just looking angry like who's this guy who's been terrorizing this area?
I'm looking for him. I'll find him. That's such a bit from a television show. I've been looking everywhere. You need the bright yellow raincoat.
I would love. Yeah, could you imagine me in a bright yellow raincoat with a slicker hat like this here, standing in the rain,
and a red balloon.
And a red balloon. It would be terrifying.
Is 6'5", 6'6" almost. I think it's important to round up. So we'll call you 6.5.
Thank you. So,
6.5 foot human. That's quite large.
Sorry, my mom was desperate not to appear on camera. So my very heavily pregnant wife is currently crawling on all fours to avoid being on the camera.
You're welcome to turn the camera off so she doesn't have to crawl.
She's 5'3". There's you wouldn't have seen her anyway.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. It's also all blurry. She does not need to worry, but also so cute. What a cutie. So tell me about your family. So your wife is pregnant?
Yes. Yeah. That was so I moved to Edinburgh. I'd been traveling for 3 years as a digital nomad, happily just wandering around and just exploring the world. And then I visited Edinburgh with the intention of just staying for a few months. And then COVID hit, and I ended up staying for about 4 years. Lots of stuff happened in those 4 years, as things happen. Lots of adventures and mishaps and everything like that. And then I met Kerry in February this year, and just decided, this is the one for me.
Scandal.
Yeah, this is the one for me, and it's all good. So I went from like last year being kind of honestly being a little bit lost and not really, kind of looking at the future and not really knowing where things are going to go, assuming things are just going to stay in exactly the same. And it wasn't a nice place at all, And as I said, we spoke about it briefly on the emails. I was always under the impression that I couldn't even be a father for various reasons. And then, yeah, everything just kind of happened all at once, and it's been an absolute blast. She's got there's a 10-year-old boy. He's recently just turned 10. Who, like I said, is going to be probably a professional footballer or an interior designer. He is epic, just
Cool.
incredible. What a
Just
wonderful little gentleman. He's a proper man of the house. So I've definitely had to earn my wings
good.
to be here. And yeah, and we've got a little baby on the way, a little daughter. Yes. And that she is due.
Soon.
He is due in like within 4 weeks until
Minutes.
yeah. So it's like
Yeah.
anytime Carrie sneezes, I'm like,
Yeah, yeah. Do I catch? Do I catch?
yeah, just like
Uh,
what do I do?
how is the 10-year-old boy feeling about being a big brother?
Oh, he loves it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we call ourselves. We got like we started calling the baby Little Monster because she's just all feet. She's just constantly kicking. So he's Big Monster, and I'm Daddy Monster, and then Carrie's Mommy Monster. Yeah, we
Exactly. This
weren't
needs
gonna.
to be I want a
Yeah, we weren't.
Halloween costume of you guys all dressed as monsters, or that's just very
Yeah.
cute.
There was no ways that we were going to do the whole princess thing. No, 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 no. We're
No, no.
monsters. We're
Yeah.
monsters. And it's fun. And in terms of like the traveling side, I mean, Carrie loves to go. She loves hiking. We're talking about traveling and going in the middle of it. It's very important for her because she's the one who just get in her car and disappear for a weekend and be up a mountain camping and hiking. And I mean, I'm quite a fit guy, but the first couple of weeks we were together, I was just like my calves were killing me. I was like,
Yeah,
I've never
yeah.
seen so many mountains. I'm like, I'm so tired. So obviously that's kind of stopped a little bit at the moment because because it's
Uh-huh,
uh,
right, because of the pregnancy.
because of the
And
pregnancy.
she also I remember you said she's what was it? Didactic, right?
Autodidact,
Didact.
yeah. So she just teaches
Yeah, which
herself anything she
basically
needs to
means
know. No, it's
uh
it's like if you can imagine, imagine living with someone that you absolutely love, but you find it very, very annoying how quickly they can pick something up.
everything.
She's very well. One, she's very intelligent. Like I feel like an ape next to her. In all
Yeah.
fairness, and I've
And
kind
you
of
look like one, so it
I just kind
works.
of accepted that, it's like, as long as I don't walk with my knuckles dragging on the floor, she's fine. I used to think I was quite an intelligent bloke, and then like I have talks to her, I'm just like I might as well just be, banging
Yeah.
a hammer on a piece of wood to try and communicate. Because yeah, so she's good at that. So she just she likes to go disappearing on camping trips, and we traveled a lot prior to things becoming a little bit difficult, which is actually very easy with the Lost Executive, with the website. I won't lie. If anyone wants to travel, set up a travel business, a travel review business, because you'll do a lot of traveling.
I will say, I didn't realize it when I started the podcast, but now I very much empathize. I'm like, yeah, start a business just so you can get some of the free stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, as soon as Little Monster's with us, we've already been talking about it. Like we're going to start doing more traveling. It's going to be a nice kind of branch out for the business, for the magazine, because we can do more family traveling stuff. There's enough on our website, although we'll have more, but there's a lot of like business traveling focused things, which is fun. But it's just
But
going to be more of a family traveling as we see in the future.
yeah, I also think people assume that just because one person is my husband travels and
Mm,
he's essentially a digital nomad. He works and we travel, and sometimes we have to travel specifically for his work, and we do it together. We do it as a
yeah,
family, and I think that's something that people think, oh, the kid has to be in a house and then the working parent or the person traveling has to go and do the traveling. And we're not the only people who we've seen who the whole family goes on
mm,
the work trip or the this. So I think that is going to be such a great, insightful new way to like help executives continue to travel, but to like include their family. Dad
yeah.
doesn't always have to be gone on a trip every weekend. Like we can go with him. And there's so many great ways. We talk about it in this podcast to explore
Mm,
cities you've never been to for free, for cheap, like museums, libraries, public transport, just walking to the local park. Like
mm.
there's so many ways to explore. You don't have to go pay $800 to go to Disneyland if you're in California or whatever.
Yeah.
So
No,
I'm
you
excited for your new
yeah.
lifestyle.
I mean, it's always been great because we've ridden the line between creating content that did carry a lot of business interest. So we'll do features on offshore mining and offshore deep drilling, deep sea drilling, with a focus on the accommodation for the workforce. And at the same time, we do reviews on hotels hotels and glamping sites and safaris. That's always been a very big focus of our magazine. But we do like to touch on business, because what we found when we were traveling, going to business meetings on airports and airplanes and whatnot, is that even if you are a business, you could be, Elon Musk. Okay, maybe he's a bad example because he might be the one he actually focuses entirely on work. But you can imagine a very successful business person who's stuck in an airport on his time off. They may actually be wanting to read about a hotel or an adventure in a city or a funny travel story. So I find a magazine is very useful because it's a platform. It becomes a platform that coordinates well with the website to give content that covers all the different ranges of travel and hospitality. And I've always found that the funny stories, really just funny stories, are the ones that really engage the most. And I've got plenty of those. But yeah, with the change coming, it's going to be very exciting, and we are looking forward to it. And I mean, it's great to hear as well that you're able to do it on your side. How long has your husband been a digital nomad?
So he took this position almost 3.5 years ago, almost
Okay.
4 years now. And in the meantime, we've done two like year-long stays. But since our daughter turned 1, we've been
Mhm.
like nonstop traveling.
Awesome. That
So
would be the dream. That would
it,
definitely be the dream for us to kind of do that. We were talking about RV or getting on a boat or something like that. Even though I get a little bit motion sickness. I'm not great on boats.
it certainly is. It's got so many parts of it are, like I said, are so great, but there are also so many parts that are so hard. And similar to ASL, I know we were talking about this earlier. And one of the
Yeah.
things you said was you really wanted to be fluent before the little monster came.
Yeah.
The truth is, for me at least, I'm never going to know it all. You're never going to be your wife. You're never going to read a book and just know. And learning along with your kids has been one of my favorite things. Like, I don't know a lot of. Yesterday we were talking about pretzels and we were trying to figure out how to sign the word pretzels. And so me and my daughter went to the computer and we looked it up together and we practiced it together. And that's that learning. Like, I don't need to know how to sign every word. We can learn together.
Mm.
And I think the same thing holds true with travel. Don't book a year-long trip on a boat if you kind of get motion sickness and you're not really sure and you've never done it before. You don't have to go all in.
No.
They have those, like, for $300, take your family on a boat and go for 2 hours and look at whales or whatever and see how you guys all feel. See how your kid might become motion sick. Like, that was one of the things we really had to learn, what also works with a child. We can't just
Mm.
continue to do all the things we want to do and just bring her along, which is part of how we live our life. But we also make sure that she's included in those
Yeah.
choices, that conversation, those places. And like I said, she's very boisterous. She will tell us if she doesn't want to do something or if she does want to do something. So
Absolutely.
we're kind of just here for her.
Yeah. I think it's going to be great because with Zach, the 10-year-old, I mean, he's already a great big brother, and he has a wonderfully adventurous side to him as well. So I think it's going to work very well when it does come to traveling, because we're not going to dive straight into it. We're planning on going,
No,
like,
no.
I'm talking about, oh yeah, we can grab like camping gear and we can go camping and we can go hikes. And Carrie's like, yeah, let's give it a little bit of time. So we're going to break into it gently, but it's going to be wonderful because he's going to be very much involved in the traveling and the adventures, and he's going to be having an adventure with his family. And she's going to grow up in that kind of environment, that kind of atmosphere, where Carrie often says that one of my biggest attributes, one of my main strengths, is the fact that I'll just do something. If I like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to do that, I'll just go and do it. And I'll be like, I got my wallet,
Yeah.
got my cell phone, got my passport. Okay, I'm ready. Off we go. Where she is the planner. And so what we've already found already is that we tend to kind of balance each other out quite nicely.
What was a moment where you were grateful you had your passport, your wallet, and your keys, and you were like, that is my saving grace? If I didn't have these things, I would be fucked right now.
Wow, that's a good one. There have been so many times. There have been so many times when that's happened. I think was probably when I went to Krakow in Poland for the first
Okay.
time. I don't know if you've ever been to Krakow in Poland, but it is a gorgeous city. I've got so much time for Europe in general. Some of my favorite places were in Europe: Krakow, Poland, Prague. Oh, I love Prague. But
We
I
did Prague when I was pregnant.
yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, it's just a
Amazing.
stunning place. Blew my mind. But yeah, I was going to Poland, Krakow, and it was January, so snowing quite heavily. as it does in the area. And I got off the bus with my wallet and my passport and my phone, and I had not slept obviously for a while. I've been up for a little while, and I completely forgot that I was meant to be carrying more luggage. And the bus departed, and I walked to the Airbnb, and I was like, I don't have anything with me. I was like, I got a backpack which had like half an eaten sandwich, an apple core, maybe a bottle of energy juice, and I was like, great. And I'd booked on one of those booking platforms, Omnio, I think it was called, which is a wonderful.
Okay.
It's wonderful for booking, but it doesn't give the details, or I couldn't find the details of like the bus company, and I didn't have a lot of battery power on my phone either, so I had to. I had to go to the offices, and this was also another time where learning how I think humility is very important in travel.
So much.
And I think that's not to throw anyone under the bus, but I think the UK in general doesn't have the best reputation when it comes to traveling in Europe. Because like a typical UK traveler is like, yes, I'll go to Spain and I'll have an English breakfast and I'll watch football and I'll go and enjoy the all inclusive resorts.
Yeah, I'll
Whereas
do the thing that I do at home there, as opposed to
going
weather. And finding the culture, and the reason you're going to Spain is to see fucking Spain. Yeah,
exactly. But there's a lot of whereas if anyone comes to Britain, generally speaking, we're like, why don't you speak English? And going into a Polish bus station and desperately trying to remember the little scant amount of Polish that I'd kind of learned in preparation of being there, to kind of say that the bus has left and all my stuff's on there, and I was in a complete flat panic. I mean, you've never seen a 6'6" guy just lose his, just like, I like to think I'm quite cool and whatnot, but I was like, okay, cool. So my phone's gonna die, but I've got my passport, so at least they'll know who I am when they find me in the snow. What? Oh yeah, that's the other, and the I had all my, because I usually have a piece of paper with all my like Airbnb details and telephone numbers on there. Because I'm terrified of losing that on my phone for whatever reason. That was in a bag that was on the bus.
Oh my God.
So it was like 11:30 at night. So everyone was wanting to go home, and I'm this foreigner. He's just like, I need some help. I need some bus.
I don't speak your language. I need help though, and I have nothing to offer.
I think I got the night manager out. He spoke a little bit better English. He was able to kind of like translate for me, and my phone was dying, so I was trying to like say, okay, the phone, and then one of the one of the attendants on the counter who deals with people face to face kind of walks out, kind of clocks me, and she goes, guitar case. So I was like, yes. The driver 3 hours earlier had
left everything.
No, he'd done his job. He kind of gone, okay, there's loads of stuff in my hole. I'll just give it to the people in the office. And if I'd just gone to her in the first place, instead of kind of walking in there doing my big, I've lost my stuff here. I'm from Scotland. Please sort me out now. I need this help here. And I would have gone my stuff and been at the Airbnb like 3 hours earlier. I was very like kind of walked out there with my tail between my legs and just like, all you had to. Oh yeah, all I had to do was just do the normal polite thing and just go there, and that was a bit of a lesson, because even at that stage I'd been traveling for ages on that one. I should have known better, but I was very grateful to, although I got all my stuff back, I was very grateful to have that, because there was that kind of momentary panic, that kind of where your brain goes into flash drive. Here? Yeah, it's just like, okay, I've got the bare essentials, so that's fine. I can, and then you start thinking, what am I going to do if I can't get into the Airbnb? You think, okay, well, the bus station isn't the warmest place, but it's not the coldest. I could sleep in here. And it wasn't my finest hour.
The things your mind starts doing to plan for safe sleep. It's the thing. It's something that I've learned that is like, I never would have learned if we hadn't done this. The ability to plan and look at all the different scenarios and the different things. Like, okay, maybe I could sleep at the bus station. Okay, what if the bus station people say, oh no, you can't sleep here? I could maybe try and find a hostel. Do I have $10? How do I look up a hostel? How do I ask someone for it? Like, your mind just starts planning all these things, and you forget to do the simple thing, which is like, go ask the lady at the front counter if anyone has turned anything in. I need to know though, throughout that whole story, did you have your cowboy hat on?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. I imagined you with it, and that really helps now.
Yeah. So not only was I a foreigner from Britain, I was a foreigner wearing a stupid cowboy hat. It's not even like a proper Stetson. It's one of those straw hats that you buy at like on the beachfront,
my
which
God.
kind of
That's
fold up.
so embarrassing.
And I was like, I also think I was wearing shorts, because I'd been on the thing, so I was wearing shorts, boots, my bright blue Vans t-shirts with the one over the, yeah.
Hilarious.
I looked like everyone kind of saw me, just went, yeah, no, he's not from here.
Yep. Yep. Okay, foreigner. Okay. Parenting tips or tricks. Anything that you think is like your main, hey, this will be, and I know that you're a new parent, essentially. You went from not being a parent to being a parent of two in about a year. What do you think can help other parents trying to travel, other executives maybe who are like, I kind of want to bring my kid with me, but I don't know if it'll make sense. Like any thoughts, feelings?
Yeah, actually, I do. I've learned a lot from Carrie. I can honestly say everything I've learned about parenting, I've kind of picked up from her, and I'm very
Well,
happy to kind of
scooch
give.
over then. Let's
Yeah,
get her in here.
no, no, I'm more than happy to kind of give the advice as if it's my own. I'm happy to
Okay,
completely steal
good.
her ideas and steal her teachings and give it off as my own advice. I'm happy to do
Like
that.
a good man.
Like a good writer, I'll just, I'll borrow what she said and I'll cite her later. But no, one of the things that I can see her doing all the time with with Zach and is the communication side of things. Speaking and talking to people is very important. So if you're traveling whether you're traveling, it's no different than if you're traveling with a group or if you're traveling with family, you're traveling with pets. Although the details are different, the locations that you go into, you're all going to want to know that's what the situation is. It's so you need to be able to communicate with them. So if you have kids, if you go into a certain country, or even if you're going to the airport, any point on the traveling plan, you have an area where you're slightly worried about, calling someone up and communicating with them, talking to them, essentially, and asking advice is very important. Never assume that you know something. Rather, just if you can't find the answer, if you Google it, which is a wonderful tool, just call someone up and say, "Hey, I don't know what I'm doing, and if you don't help me out, this is going to become your problem too. So how about you sort me out now?" And the second part is working as a team. Communication helps working as a team, and that is particularly important in anything, because if you can communicate well, which I think starts on talk and being able to talk about the absolutely ridiculous, nonsensical things, and then that leads into being able to talk about the deeper problems. And it doesn't matter what you're talking about as long as you're talking. I think that's important. Being able to learn how to communicate with each other is so important. And then
That's
that,
such a good quote.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter what you talk about. We talk constantly. Like every night, I can say we sit down and probably for about an hour and a half, if not a lot more. We'll just talk, and we'll talk about what's happened during the day. We'll talk about little concerns we're having, or I'm really worried about this. Or the conversation may start with like a political in it. Oh yeah, what do you think about the recent elections? Or what do you think about this? Or I'm worried about this. I'm worried about this tiny little aspects of what's taken place in the world, in the whole world. There's small things really kind of playing with my brain here, and then we chew it down to the bone. And she's very great at like stopping me from spiraling, because I got a few things in my brain. I've always had pretty hectic brain, and I'm one of those people who don't have an internal monologue, so I need to verbalize things to kind of shape it. So if I'm not scribbling down, that's why I'm a writer. I can write stuff down. But if I'm not scribbling something down, I need to verbalize it, and it's not always going to make a lot of sense or be sensical or follow like a prescribed idea. So sometimes I'll just come out with stuff that I don't actually believe or feel or want to invest in cognitively. I'm just spewing out words. She's great, like listening at that and going, okay, cool. So I think this is what you're trying to say. I'm like, yes, that's exactly it. Thank you. And we can move on from that. And she does the same thing for me. And we kind of worked out how to communicate with each other well. And because of that, being a team is much easier, because when you're talking all the time and when you're able to communicate, then the roles in a household doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Your team. So it swings, and it's kind of like on a sailboat. You ride the current together. And it makes that anything you decide you want to do together is possible. So deciding to travel the world with kids, well, that's fine. How do we do it? Where do we approach it? She's got the side of planning everything, having research and stuff, and I'm like, brilliant, let's go. So there's that just that working together and the coordination. I think it's very important, and you can see it. It's pretty much exactly the same thing that's happened with you and with your family, because you don't do that if you can't communicate.
Yeah, I will tell you, last night we're making plans to leave where we are and travel within the next 3 days to be in a new place within the next 2 weeks. We're hoping to be about I think 900 to 1,000 miles away from where we are right now in like less than 2 weeks. And with the thoughts that we have to plan are around a nap time, we have to plan around that, around sleep. Our kid needs a crib still. So we have to take down and put up a crib everywhere we go. We put a soft thing on top of our car where we put our luggage. And similar to what you said earlier, we're in cities, we're in places we don't know. What is in the roof of our car it's important to us. It's so important that we bring it with us everywhere we go, but it wouldn't be the end of the world if we lost that stuff. If it got, jacked into, or if it fell off the roof on the highway and landed on everyone's car. But we learn these ways of adapting. And when we have to do that planning, talking it through, having that back and forth. Okay, well, what do you think if we do this and we change it to that? Or if, let's say she doesn't nap that day, can we do 6 hours? Or if she sleeps really well, can we do 8 hours? Can we push it so that we're making more mileage and we're not paying as much money? So that back and forth, that communication, that constant checking in, I think is so beneficial and a huge reason why we try to instill communication in our daughter as early as possible to help her communicate the best way that kids can. It's why I'm such an advocate for ASL and baby sign language. And like I said earlier, your mouth, a human's mouth doesn't form the dexterity and the ability to communicate as quickly as the physical aspect of their hands. And so the cognitive thoughts are there, but the ability to use their mouth to get isn't there. And so giving them the ability to do that, I think, is so huge. And so I think communication is just key. And I think communicating with your children is key. And I'm just, yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
I
My
will
answer
say
is yes.
it is quite wonderful to hear how you guys are traveling with a child that young, because it does give us incredible hope on when we set off. It's nice to see that it is possible to do it. I mean,
It's not only possible, it can work and it can thrive and it can be great. And there are certainly, like I said, there are hard parts, but it is possible. And it's, if you love it and you want to travel and you think that, oh no, I'm having a kid, my whole life is changing and everything's going to end, like a little bit. Yeah. But also it changes and you learn and you adapt. And it has made me more creative. It has made me more adaptable, and traveling has just taught me I think it's taught me how to communicate better and how to expedite better. And that is with that could be with trash. Like yesterday, I took the trash out, and just saying, hey, I took the trash out, so that it doesn't become that, because that'll sit in the back of my husband's head. Like, oh, I got to take the trash out. I got to take the trash out. Communicating that I already did it checks it off from his mental list. And it's that communication that I think people forget to do.
Well, I agree. I mean, you never hear, there's no shortage of stories, unfortunate stories of people here in relationships that don't seem to work out. And I think the key to any of it is just talking to each other. If you can't because that's the thing, if you can't sit down, if you can't sit down and enjoy silence with each other, then there's something wrong. But on the same note as well, is that if you have something on your mind and you can't talk with the person that you're planning to spend the rest of your life with, or at least a large chunk of it, if you can't sit down and actually talk with them about it, then there's something wrong. And you should be able to talk about absolutely anything, and talk about subjects that you've already spoken about, that you're just trying to formulate and shape in your head. Especially nowadays with the internet, we have no limit to the amount of information we're able to get. And I'm a child of the 90s. I still remember where if you wanted to hear about what was happening in America, you had to watch the news. If you wanted to hear about what was happening somewhere, you had to read a newspaper. You had to actively pursue that information.
Look for it,
find it. Yeah. Very seldom, unless you were tapped into it for work or whatever else, especially if you're a kid, you only received what you went out to find. If you
it was usually vetted and researched and written by a credible source at most points. Whereas now you're getting Joe Schmo's thoughts on what's going on in Gaza, and you're like, hey, Joe, you've never left Seattle.
And popularity is becoming more important than actually being the first person to talk about it is more important than being the first person to actually speak factually about it. It's no longer about the truth, it's about being the first person to say it. And unfortunately, we are, as humans, we naturally kind of gravitate towards people that we like. And if you like someone, on social media for whatever reason. If they say something, think, okay, well, I'm more willing to listen to what they say, even if they may not have any idea about it. You hear celebrities talking about political situations until you stop to think, yeah, you're a great actor, but why are you talking about this? Why should I
Yeah, yeah,
believe you
yeah.
in this? It's like, I just saw you in an advert for toothpaste. Why am I going to listen to about your opinion about war? But the problem is that when we get all this stuff coming into our heads and we can't escape it. It's more an effort to avoid it now than it is to actually find it. With that, it is important to be able to talk to someone about what you're thinking, what's on your mind. And it may be an unpopular thought. Like the other day, I was trying to balance up a particularly topical idea in my head, and I didn't know how. I wasn't able to kind of come to grips with it. I wasn't able to kind of balance it out. But one thing I've always found is that I always feel better after talking to Kerry about anything. Whenever something's on my mind, because like I said before, I can spiral quite fast. And I'll just come through it. I'll just be like, I've got something in my brain. I can't think past it. I can't think around it.
Stop.
And
That's so cute, though.
she'll
That's
just
like
stop
every
what she's
girl's
doing.
dream.
Yeah, she'll just stop what she's doing, and she'll be like, "Well, let's talk about it," and we'll just talk through it, and we'll. It gives me a chance to chew it down to the bone and kind of shape it in my head into a kind of a balance. And on the other side as well is that it means that from her side, she knows exactly what's going through my brain, and then she'll have something on her mind, and we'll just talk it through, and she'll do her best to communicate to me in a fashion that I can understand because I'm just so much dumber than she is. But we find that balance. So for me, it's like I'm getting a chance to talk to like a supremely intelligent god, and she's like, I get to talk to like my pet Donnie.
Is she crawling behind you?
She's just behind me now. Yeah, but
I,
yeah,
I
I think communication is everything. I'd say, especially when it comes to travel
Yeah.
and life.
I think you're spot on. I couldn't
Love.
agree more. I think love is one of those things that it's perfected when communication is involved. I think
Yeah.
like it's very easy to love someone. And then if you're not talking and you're not communicating, you're not able to love them maybe the way that they need to be loved. And I think kids are the same way. I want to learn who you are and I want to love you in a way that shows up for you. And the
Mm.
best way to do that is to like also listen, communicate, have that conversation. Like, I think it's so fucking cool when parents sit down and have conversations like that with their kids and like chew things to the bone and listen to
Yeah.
what they're saying politically, socially, just, oh, I didn't like what you made for dinner. Oh, okay. What was it about, like finding out your kid has that weird cilantro gene where it tastes like soap because they just told you they didn't like something and you listened and you asked questions and you kept things going. I think I just like love communication. So I'm so into that
Mm.
for you.
Oh, definitely. And I also think that there's a lot of terms like love they're words that are defined by actions, and so they're very difficult to understand. Like when you're a kid, someone says, "Yeah, you have to find love." You think, "I don't know, where do I look for it?" It's like,
What is it?
can you show me what color it is at least so I can go out and find it? But I was very lucky because I grew up in a very tight knit family. We grew up in South Africa, in Durban, South Africa, very hot place, beautiful, beautiful place. And for all the violence that South Africa is known for, and certainly all the violence and the crime that we were exposed to just by living there, I still had the most wonderful childhood, like unbelievable. We went traveling. We lived part time in a caravan. We had a house that we grew up in was right next to a river, so I spent all my time down there. It was just incredible. And my family were very close knit. Mom, dad, my two sisters. I mean, my mom and dad they knew each other for about 3 months before they were also like together and with a family on the way. So following a bit of a family
Par for the
tradition.
course. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but we were always very close, and I think that's where I learned that things like love and emotional things are you can't define them as categories. They are actions. Love is something that you action with each other. So communication is part of that. Being willing to stop and actually listen to someone, but also it's doing the little things. And this is important when it comes to traveling as well, because there's lots of things that have to take place in travel. If you make a list of all the items that you need to do when you travel, compared to all the chores and things that you need to do just to run a household, they kind of even out a lot. You still have things that have to be done. And
Yeah.
I find that it's the smallest things that count the most. Carrie's never drunk as many cups of tea as she has around me because I'm just like, well, I fancy making you a cup of tea. She likes to cook. I'm not great on cooking. I like to cook an open fire. I like to do the manly thing with the barbecue. But I don't really know my way around the kitchen. But I'll do all the dishes. And we never had to discuss that. We just kind of fell into those roles. But the communication's always there, and the fact that we express our love in one, in doing little things to support each other. The smallest little things count the most. And two, as well, as actually investing our time and our cognitive thoughts into each other's plans for the future. We were very lucky when we first started going out. We kind of knew that, on my side, I was like, this, she's the most incredible person I've ever met. I don't want to, this is it. This is the one, if this isn't the one, I'm going to become a priest and join a monastery and whatever else. And I don't imagine what she was thinking about. She was like, oh, he's tall. He has a beard.
That's all
And
we look for.
that's it. But we kind of identified exactly what it was that we wanted to do with our lives. So we have a very firm idea of that there are roads that our roads run parallel to each other. All right. So we don't think that our roads we're not on the same road. Our roads run parallel to each other. And with a family, your roads run parallel, but you have your own interests and you have your own ambitions. You have your own dreams. And we were very clear about that at the start. So we were lucky. We started the communication right at the start. And we entered into this knowing exactly that each of us had our own interests and our own kind of passions and own kind of things. And with that, you're able to support each other. You don't have to like the same things, but you can certainly be interested in them. And there's a wonderful line from Dorian Gray, the picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, that every experience has a value. And when you love someone and when you invest in someone else's life, you have the opportunity to kind of experience things from their perspective. And that becomes a lot easier when you're able to communicate with each other and across the whole family, actually, because the same thing applies to a family of whatever size it is. If you
Yeah.
have kids, you need to show an interest in what they're doing. Like Zach loves football. I am South African. We call it soccer. I prefer rugby, but I'll make sure I'm at the games. We play football whenever we
Yeah.
get a chance to, and he's very eager to. I think kids largely they base their own interests on what they can throw and what they get back from people. So they're like, oh, I'm interested in this, but
But
they're
no
trying to,
one's really cares. Nobody's coming to my
yeah,
games. Nobody
you
wants to
know,
kick the ball around with me or whatever.
very few kids will be like, oh, I have a real interest in this. And then if they get no response back from anyone, are likely to continue doing that. They'll just lose interest in it because I think when you're a kid, it makes sense. If you're a child living in the wild with the tribal and, in the middle of Africa, you learn what you can do and what you shouldn't do by one, by experimenting, but two, also by what you bounce off of your parents and off your guardians, off the people you're there trying to make sure that you survive. And so I think there's a lot of that. So the communication and the interest, it all kind of ties into each other. So I think I went off on a
Yeah.
bit of a tangent on that one. Sorry.
No, but like it's such a good tangent. I think we're like just landing on the same topic. Love, travel, communication. They're all important, I think, in life and being a person and experiencing, learning, growing, all of that fun stuff. I do want to ask you like one more main question. I always lived in the same city. I want to maybe try being a digital nomad. I want to try and get out there. Like what advice would you give me, or how can I maybe use the Lost Executive or the logbook to try and experiment, to try and get out there? Like what would be your recommendation to newbie you 20 years ago with all the
20 years
tools we have now?
Oh wow, that is a
Yeah,
great
back when you were
question.
10.
Yeah, back when I was, well, 20. No, I'm 40 now, so I was a wee bit older then. But yeah, good question in my 20s. If I would, what advice I'd give myself. I think the first thing is you have to kind of take it back down to basics. That you don't want to go somewhere and be stranded, right? Because although that is a great way to learn a lot, it's a very tough lesson to do. And the problem about being stranded is that anyone who actively goes out to be stranded is an idiot, because that's a good way. It doesn't matter if you're in the city or on a hill. Yeah, stranded is stranded, and it's not a nice
Yeah.
experience. So I would say that's one. It is. I'd say I can tell you the things that things that I did that you shouldn't do. So
Okay.
one, don't drop everything and just disappear in a whim with the money you've got in your wallet, thinking, "Oh, this will be fine. I'll just see what's going to happen." Right?
Okay.
You need an extraordinary amount of luck to do that, and I was very lucky, but I also think my luck was partly because I got lots of friends and a lot of family who were like, "Oh, right, yeah, so you're stranded again. Okay, no, that's a problem. That's no worries. We'll,
It's
you
okay.
know,
We have a couch. Oh, you
yeah,
can sleep on it, but I'm
it's
annoyed at you.
yeah. When I die and I had to kind of face up to all my debts in the past, there's not going to be any massive debts or huge loans. No, it'll be like the people who dropped me $50 here and $100 there, or yes, you can stay on the couch for tonight, and then in 3 weeks later, like, yeah, listen, when are you moving on? All those little favors count for a lot. So I'd say you don't want to be stranded. So one, having savings is a good idea. So and that's something that is probably the greatest bit of advice that I wish I'd had when I was a kid is to save. Just get into the habit of saving money. It doesn't matter if you're making millions or if you're making pennies. If you learn to save, if you are able to be disciplined enough that you can put $10 a month into a bank account and not touch it, then you're likely to be able to put in $20, $50, $100 whenever you get a chance to. And having savings means that you won't be stranded. It may not be enough for you to survive on for months, but if you have a bit of savings, a little bit to fall back on, just to get you covered for a few days while you sort stuff out, that's important. So I'd always say make sure you have some savings. And frankly, the bigger the savings you have, the
Yeah.
better. But you don't have to have huge. Not like a lot of people don't have that kind of money. You still go out and travel. So I'd say if you can save a couple of $100, that's enough to kind of give yourself a bit of a shortfall should you need to. You'll be amazed at how far a penny can stretch when you need it to. But
Yeah.
on the second one as well, I'd always say make sure that you have a source of income, and that is easier to do than most people realize. And I've always found that having a good story is important. Your elevator pitch. If you have a degree, and if you had the chance to go to university and you've got a suitable kind of training, there are a lot of jobs that you can do remotely. And that is always great. And if you can make it clear, again, communication at the start of working for someone, that you have plans of traveling, you'll be amazed at how often they can take that seriously. If you can do the job remotely, generally speaking, you do the job remotely from anywhere. Not every company is going to be willing to do that. But then again, if they're not willing to do that, maybe that's not the right company for you. And if
Yeah.
you don't have any experience, if you don't have any kind of, rather, if you don't have any qualifications, but what you do have is experience, which is where I came from, have been able to communicate and offer something to a business is usually enough to kind of build up a bit of revenue from them. And that I didn't explain that correct. I didn't explain that part well enough. I When I was traveling, I was doing a lot of writing for other magazines. That's what I was doing. I did that because I got a list of, oh God, I think I had about 300, 400 magazines. And I just mailed them all and said, I'm a writer. I know how to write. I've written several books. I've spent my life writing. Got no qualifications. I'm planning on traveling. This is what I'm doing. Can we work together? What can we do?
Yeah.
And and the thing is, that's an old sales gimmick. You ask enough people, and eventually a couple of them are just like, yeah, all right, sure. What do you need? Not what do you need, but they're like, okay, we can pay you for an
Yeah.
article. You think, well, that's brilliant. If I can make a penny, I can make a pound. If I can make a pound, I can make a
I can make
salary.
100. Yeah. I,
And
I
when you,
will say,
yeah,
not to cut you off, but the terminology that I've taken to using is audacity. I have the
mm,
audacity to do that. I have the audacity to ask for a sponsor. I have the audacity to sit down with you and have a conversation. Someone who I believe is outside my league by tenfold, but it's I believe in myself. And so like how could someone else, and like you said, a story, all of that. I think just having the audacity to ask, just ask. What's the worst
true,
that someone can say? No?
exactly. I will also, I'll add on to that as well, because what I've found is I have set up businesses in the past before, and they haven't always worked out. And I've done a lot of different things, I've done a lot of different jobs, and they haven't always worked out. But I'm not a big believer in, or at least my experience has shown me that being a big the whole believing in yourself is the same as a category of love or passion.
Yeah.
You can't see it. It's not a tangible thing. And so some people are like, well, I don't have a lot of belief in myself. Well, what do I do? And if you don't have it and you don't know how to establish it, you don't know how to find it because you haven't succeeded in anything or you haven't tried anything yet, and you're wanting to, but you haven't done it, you're not going to have it. Or you're going to think, okay, I don't have much belief in myself, so what am I going to do? I believe more in having a belief in a system. Have a
Okay.
system, have your simple system. It's like, phone, wallets, pass. In terms of business, my system is down to basics, just down to basics. What do I need to achieve it? So, for example, with writing, I needed a means of making income while I was traveling. So I said, fair enough. There's a magazine out there. This was before I set up my magazine.
The
It was
logbook.
between,
Yeah.
yeah, I was a chief editor for another magazine, and then I left. And between that and the logbook, there's a period of time, etc., etc. A whole different podcast for that. But the approach is simple. You get enough, on my side, you get enough leads, enough people who might be interested in working with you, might be interested in paying you, whatever, to write for them or to create content or do whatever. You get enough of those leads, you contact them, and you whittle it down. So you get 400 leads on whatever it is. If you want to be a writer, you get 400 magazines, find the details of their editors, you contact them all. From those 400, let's say you get 10. You say, yeah, okay, let's have a chat. Let's see what you've got. And from that 10, you get 3 or 4. You're like, yes, we actually like your stuff. We're going to pay you for it. That is a system that's always worked for me. Always. If I needed a place to stay and I didn't have it, I got my list of 400, 500 hotels and I contacted them all. If I had, when it comes to anything, sales or
Yeah.
editorials, if I'm looking to find a really strong, that's how I found, I don't know if you're aware of him, Barry Hearn. He's the CEO of Matchroom.com, well, chairman of Matchroom.com. His son is the, yeah,
Boxing. Yeah.
his son is the manager for Anthony Joshua. I got a long list and I contacted him, and now Barry and I have a really good relationship. Anytime I've launched any kind of editorial or writing thing, any kind of magazine or anything, I've contacted him. And this multi millionaire whose business is worth just shy of $1 billion is like, yeah, sure, let's talk. And then we'll just ramble on for an hour and a half. And I'll be like, brilliant, thank you. Yeah, no worries. And just very engaged. That's the thing as well, is that people are always, as long as you can talk to someone, you have the audacity to ask them, can you
Yeah.
help me? People are like, yeah, let's do it.
I was talking to my one of my parents the other day, and they said, I always worry about things being equal for all of my children. There's 3 of you. So for Christmas, this is what you're all getting. And then this is what the children are getting. And, like, I just want to keep it all equal. And I said to my mom, I said, I think that's fine that you can have that desire to keep everything equal, but we're not equal. We're different people. And one thing about me is that I have no trouble asking for help. I have no trouble accepting help. I have the audacity to reach out. I have the audacity to start a podcast. I have the audacity to sit down with someone who I am intimidated by, or I'm afraid I'm not good enough or whatever. But it's also accepting and reaching out to Barry and saying, hey, I have this idea. Can we talk through it? What do you think about it? Having that conversation, having that communication, but being open, being accepting, and like being willing. I think that is also so monumentally fundamental of like getting anywhere or continuing, or just like continuing to be alive. I think so many people want to do everything on their own, and you
And also,
can't.
people are afraid of failing.
Yeah, yeah.
People are terrified of failing. But the thing is, though, and this is the big part, is that feeling of, you mentioned that feeling of not inadequacy, but of being like, you need audacity to do this because you may be talking to someone who's, like me talking to Barry and whatnot. That feeling never goes away. I don't think so. Because one of the other thing as well that I've learned is that it doesn't matter. Success is fleeting. It doesn't matter what you're successful in. I know people who are millionaires like 10 years ago who are like flat broke now. They're not just flat broke. They're like, I moved back in with my parents broke. We're living in a generation where everything is in flux. We're living at a time where everything is in flux. And it's not the first time it's happened to humanity, but it is one of the first times when it's announced and broadcast everywhere.
Yes.
You're always going to fail. To succeed, you have to fail. And there's an old sales adage which I always love to remind myself, is that you're going to fail most of the time. You have to
Yeah.
accept that. And you have to be able to recognize the feelings that you get when you just fail. I had that yesterday. I had a not a disagreement, but I had a conversation with someone that made me feel like almost like I was just like a hack. Because they kind of knew the journey I'd taken to get here, and they're like, well, okay, so yeah, how does it feel? You're still pretending to be like a successful business owner? And it really threw me, and it threw me to the point where I kind of came home and I was in
A
like a bad mood.
slump.
I was in a massive slump. We call it in South Africa, we call it dwal. It's just like a hole. And
I love that. Swall.
yeah, and b- being able to recognize that, I was like, oh, I'm not going to do any more work. I'm just going to stop it. I'm going to play some video games. I'm just going to chill out. I'm just not going to think about it. I'm going to focus on the family, focus on that, refresh myself, then sleep on it, and I'll wake up feeling better. We say in South Africa, we say in Afrikaans, it's môre is 'n nog 'n dag, which means tomorrow's another day. So it doesn't matter what happens today. Tomorrow's another day. You start fresh, you start clean. Don't let it bug you down. But the feeling's always going to be there. You know, successful people aren't immune to feelings of failure. I mean, you can imagine you might have £1 million in the bank, but if you've just betted £1,000,001 on a business venture that goes south, you're still going to feel like and that's a monumental cock up. And you're going to
Yeah.
feel that way. But then you're going to have to think, like with Elon Musk, whatever you think about Elon Musk, because a lot of people have very different kind of opinions on him. But for
And
a
you
guy
went to
based,
school with him, right?
oh no, he was in South Africa. He's South African. And yeah, I didn't go to school with him.
Oh, you weren't mates.
No, we weren't mates. Trust me, if we were, I would definitely have him on speed dial. He'd be like, Donnie, seriously, mate, stop calling me. Stop calling me. All right. But yeah, I mean, this is a guy who he built up a business, and then for the SpaceX and sending the rocket up. The
Sure.
number of times that if that I think it was on the fourth mission or whatnot, and I might be incorrect on this, but the idea is there. The fourth mission is that if that rocket had crashed, that's it. They would have been out of money. They would have been done. And yeah, fine, he might be a billionaire. He's like, okay, no, that's absolutely fine. But he's still going to get a knock on that. You've built something up, and then you're going to have that feeling of failure.
Yeah.
Being able to manage those and navigate those emotions, because you're going to be affected by them, unless you're a complete psychopath or a sociopath, which most of us aren't. Hopefully, most of us
Maybe.
aren't.
Don't worry. Don't
Unless you don't
worry
run those,
about it.
yeah. Unless you don't run those Facebook tests that kind of say, "Oh yeah, no, you're a psychopath. Oh, marvelous." You're going to be dealing with those emotions, and knowing how to navigate that and is very important. That's something that doesn't go away. So I would say that's the other point as well for travelers. Learning how to
Yeah.
navigate the emotions and know and recognizing yourself. Why am I feeling like this? Is it something I genuinely need to worry about? Am I tired? Am I hungry? Basic things you ask your kid. Are you tired? Are you hungry? Have you shat yourself?
Yeah.
You know,
Are you
it's,
human too? I think
are you
this
human?
happened in this exact moment. Granted, you're not Elon Musk, thank goodness, but um I I I am intimidated by you. I've done some research on your company. You've agreed to be a sponsor on the podcast. You are somebody I look up to as a human being. I'm
Thank you.
excited to be able to get to chat to you. And I slept through my fucking alarm. Like that moment was so embarrassing. So I looked at my husband and I said, I don't know what to do. Like this like I remember in the moment being like, this is it. You failed. You're a failure. You are like, and exactly that. I was in a hole. I kind of was upset about it and disappointed in myself. And then I made sure to set alarms, like multiple alarms. That's the last time I'm going to sleep through an alarm, maybe, or maybe it's not. Like, I'm human. We are human beings communicating that, being honest, being vulnerable. Like, no one's, for the most part, you could easily have said, hey, no, you had one shot. You suck.
No.
See you later.
To be honest, I regularly make cock ups that would make that look like absolutely nothing. I could tell you stories that you'd be like, no way. I'd be like, yeah, no, there's documented evidence of that. So yeah, you
But
mustn't worry
I
about that.
think it's
Mistakes
also
happen.
that Exactly. Mistakes happen. It's the forgiveness of yourself, of the people around you. It's giving yourself that kindness, and it's that ability to fail. Like one day I'm going to fail, one day I'm not going to fail. Like I I might also fail again tomorrow, but
Yeah.
I think also the audacity is consistency, continuing to show
Yes.
up. That is something this podcast has given me, if nothing but every week I have to get an episode out.
Mhm.
That's my goal. That's my effort. And then everything else I can just like that's an added bonus. I did something extra this week. I had promotional somethings. I did this. And especially because I'm doing it all on my own, like we record, I usually have like 2 hours of audio to edit
Mm.
and then to break that down and get the music in it and the this and the that. Like not, I 6 months ago, I didn't know how to do any of that. Now I
Yeah.
do. And like, I think that in and of itself is because of the consistency, showing up, even though yesterday I failed, showing up again tomorrow. And like,
Yeah.
that's it. Like, that's,
Consistency counts for
yeah,
everything in anything.
in
Consistency is
anything.
absolute. Yeah, it creates
Yeah.
momentum. It keeps you moving. Also, being humble enough to understand that yeah, everyone makes mistakes, and being wise enough to know that as long as you learn from your mistakes, it's fine.
It's fine.
But knowing that there's going to be a lot more mistakes, that's a big part. And like yeah, I could tell you stories, Effie, like you wouldn't believe.
So we've got
And my wife has
one.
been crawling around for a bit too long now.
Yeah, we got to get her off her hands and knees. She's 9 months pregnant. She's tired. You have one. I let everybody ask me a question. If you have a question to ask me, then welcome to, but no pressure.
Yeah, I'm interested to. Do you I understand that right now you're probably very much living in the moment? I imagine, I can, when Little Monsters here, I imagine I'm going to be living day by day just to kind of,
A mess.
take every bit of the juice I can from it. But with the traveling, do you foresee in the future with the education and schooling side of things? Do you see that being a hurdle to overcome, or do you think that is an obstacle that you may need to properly navigate? Are you worried about the
Yeah.
education, or do you think something are you planning to like homeschool or?
Yeah. I appreciate the question. It's something we're approaching now. She's about to be 2. She's quite advanced. Like I told you, she's hitting 4-year-old milestones. So realistically, she's at a point where she would be entering like that preschool, that like
Mm,
very, she can count, she knows her colors, she knows the alphabet. She's at a point where she's like ready to start learning. And I don't think that I have the knowledge or the ability to teach her formally full time, but we don't know how we're going to approach it. In our head we think, oh, we have to land somewhere where she can go to public school, or do we pay to have someone come in and teach her? Like we're currently navigating that. I don't have an
okay.
answer, mostly because I'm scared of the US. There's a lot of gun violence in schools.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hatred and misinformation being taught in schools, which is again like what the fuck. And so it's a huge navigating situation that we just don't know our answer to yet.
Mhm.
But like I'm excited to
To
learn,
find out.
to
Yeah.
find out. There's so many options out there. I've seen parents who travel to different countries to send their kids to school for a year in another country. Then they switch and sort of this like nomadic learning thing.
Mm,
I think from what I've seen, you might need to be really well off, which we are not.
not
But there
yet.
are not yet. There are so many options out there that I am really excited to find out what is going to work for our family and what's going to work for her. And I like really appreciate that question because it reminded me that like, oh fuck, we need to get her in school.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a question that we've considered on our side as well. Um, Hello.
Oh, someone's back.
Hey,
We brought all
yeah.
of our toys. That's Donnie.
Nice. Hi. What is her name?
This is Poppy,
Poppy.
Poppy.
So P-O. Can you show me that again?
Yeah, P
P
O
O
P
P
Y.
Y.
Yeah. Who is
I
that?
can see she's kind of working out. Like, what is he saying?
Yeah, she's like, how does he know my letters? She can't hear you, so she's even more confused.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't realize. Is she actually?
oh, she is not deaf. I just have headphones in.
Oh, right. Okay, no, that makes more sense.
Call friends. You want to
Excellent.
call your friends? We're not calling friends right now because Momo's doing work, right? Do you
Okay,
want to go play? Okay, yeah, you should go play.
excellent. Evie, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting.
Absolute pleasure. Tell Carrie I said thank you for the time that she let you stay with me, and I want to be one of the first people that you tell when Little Monster's here. I want to
Of
know.
course.
I
Yes,
want to
no,
be
I'll
on
make
that
sure of that.
email thread.
Yes, absolutely. No, definitely. We're very excited. Very excited. It's weird. I'm more excited than I am terrified, which I think is a good thing.
It is. It
I think it's
is.
a good thing.
You're
Yeah.
gonna be a dope dad. I mean, you're
I
already a
want
dope
to.
dad. You're gonna be a good dad.
Yeah. I'm going to be a cool dad. I think I'm going to be
Yeah.
a cool dad. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Yeah. That's what we want.
I'm
Yeah,
going to
man.
embarrass her so much. Oh, I'm going to be that
Yeah.
dad.
Oh man, if we don't already do that, we call her Poopy. Her name is Poppy. We are her biggest bullies. We call her Poopy often. But yeah, she's the fucking coolest. You're gonna love it. I'm so excited for you guys.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everything. And we'll talk soon.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Thanks again.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.
For those of you who love MOMadic Adventures and just can't get enough, please head over to our Patreon. If you contribute, you can join in and be a part of our nomadic parenting community, as well as get some behind the scene content. And if you don't want any of that extra stuff, you can actually just click the support the show link in the info of this episode, and you can support the show for as little as $3. Any little bit helps us keep going. I do this entire podcast for the most part on my own. I am the editor, I am the scheduler, I am the planner, the interviewer, the marketing manager, and the all-around hat wearer. And truly, any support helps. And if you support us this week, next week, we will give you a shout out, a thank you directly to you on the episode, just, saying thanks so much for supporting us. And if you're like, hey, I would love to support, but I don't really have the money, or I don't want to give my money to you guys, that's totally cool too. There are so many other ways to support. You can head to Instagram, Threads, YouTube, all the social medias. We're under MOMadic Adventure Pod. If you have an idea for the show, if you think you know somebody who would be a great guest, or if you just have a question or want to talk to me, you can send me a text. The info for that is also in the info of this episode. So there's links there for you to support the show, to text us, to follow our socials, blah, 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 blah. Come, hold my hand. Let's go on an adventure.